Hello, and welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Evening Bible Studies with your host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann. We invite you to our website at ebiblefellowship.org for additional Bible studies. And now, with his study in the book of Romans, here's Chris McCann.
Good evening, and welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Bible study in the book of Romans. Tonight is study number 25 of Romans chapter 3, and we're reading from verse 12. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace have they not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. And I'll stop reading there. Well, we find another all-encompassing statement at the end of verse 12. We've already seen that in verse 10, there's none righteous, no, not one. Verse 11, there is none that understandeth, none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. And this is a description of mankind that is about as bad, as negative, as awful and terrible as any description could be. With each statement, each declaration, God is hammering the lid on the coffin of man's spiritual deadness. There's just no area he is not touching upon where a person might think that they have some righteousness. No, you have none. No one does. Or they might think they have some understanding. No, you have none understanding. Or they might think that they have sought after or will seek after God. No, none seek after him. All are unprofitable. All have gone out of the way. And we saw in our last study, all are filthy, spiritually, dirty, rotten sinners. We are as bad as can be imagined. And beyond that, that is the fallen nature of mankind, of each human being. That is us in our fallen state. Apart from God, each one of these applies to us and is true of us. Now, finally, at the end of verse 12, it says, there is none that doeth good, no, not one. None doeth good. Not a single person. And it's always been true since Adam fell, back in the year of creation, 11,013 BC, and over the 13,000 plus years of human history since then. Not a single person has done good of themselves. You know, we're, of course, aware of the exceptions, and the exceptions occur when God intervenes into the life of certain ones, his elect people, and he changes their heart, and he makes them good in that sense, then righteous in that sense. He gives them understanding. He causes them to seek after him. So all that we read here is altered in the life of an elect child of God. But without God's intervention, without his entering into the life of an individual, if he just leaves a person alone, and that's sorrowfully what has happened with the vast majority of people If God leaves them alone, then all these things are most accurate, and it is a full explanation as to why we see the ugly sinfulness of the world on a daily basis, day after day, all the evil reports, all the terrible things that happen across the face of the earth. There's no town, no city, no state, no country that is functioning on a different level, that somehow is operating with all of its inhabitants being good and righteous and just and loving. No, this is true of everywhere in the world. There is no place to run. There is no place to go. There is no place of escape as far as getting away from the sinfulness of men, sinfulness of all people. You cannot avoid it. And even in our own self, as we know. And I mentioned earlier that God does intervene into the lives of the elect, those who have been predestinated by him to obtain salvation, and he changes them. And still, we read in Ecclesiastes 7, in verse 20, "For there is not a just man upon earth that doeth good and sinneth not," even in the lives of the elect. They do good, they are just, made righteous by the righteousness of Christ. Christ's righteousness is their righteousness, in other words, and they've received a new born-again soul that is perfect and therefore good. It's without any sin of any kind, and still there's not a just man that doeth good from the heart, from his new born-again soul, and sinneth not, because while we live the rest of our days in this world, we're still in the flesh, and the flesh is corrupted and sins. The flesh is still sinning. So it is a desperate situation in this world, and the only solution, the only remedy for the world is its end. It is God to judge it and to destroy it. And in destroying it, he will destroy the corruption. In destroying all of the wicked people, he will destroy their sin, as well as all the sinners who commit the sin, and remove it out of existence. It must be annihilated completely. This awful stain of evil must be wiped out, and that is where we're moving towards rapidly in this day of judgment, as we fast approach that last day. Well, going back to this statement in Romans 3, verse 12, "There is none that doeth good, no, not one." And I've said many times, and I've said it because I've heard it many times, and I'm sure you have too, that if people are asked, "Are you a good person?" that the common response is, "Yes, I'm basically a good person." Well, I started wondering, has that perception changed lately, given that so much wickedness, so much evil is multiplying across the face of the earth? And you know, when evil multiplies, it obviously means that there are more and more people doing the evil. And so has some sense of understanding, of recognition, has some humility crept into the people of the world if they were asked this question in 2021, in our present time? And actually, I found they just recently conducted a poll in May of 2021. And the question was asked, are you a good person? And this study was conducted in the United States, and the respondents were U.S. residents. And it found that 81% of U.S. residents believe mankind, actually in the study they used the word humankind, but they believe mankind is inherently good. 3 and 4, which would be 75%, believe themselves are fundamentally a good person. They see themselves as fundamentally a good person. Researchers also asked the respondents how they would compare themselves to others in their lives, and 46%, which is almost half, said they were better people than everyone else they know. Everyone else they know. And it's a tendency of man, isn't it? It's a tendency of man to basically see people as good, and especially to see oneself as good, maybe even the best of all. And they went on to ask the people to describe characteristics that they believed are attributes of a good person. And they said someone kind, friendly, and giving. Kind, friendly, and giving. And you see, this is the reason for the discrepancy, and it's a huge discrepancy, isn't it? From basically being a good person and so many people thinking that, to what the God of the Bible says, there is none good. And when God says that you're not good, he's not looking at it on some kind of, scale, or he's not looking at an individual as, okay, the person, as far as goodness, we use 100% rating. And so this person, he's not good. So he's about a 45%. Or this one here, he's a little bit better. He's 49. And another one, well, he's getting there. He's 51. No, God doesn't use that kind of rating system. When he looks at someone, all he sees is someone is good if they are perfect, if they have obeyed his law perfectly, without a single exception in their whole life. If they have kept his law in thought, word, and deed perfectly, 100% of the time, in every moment that they have been alive, actually right from conception up until the present, that is a good person. And of course, that did apply to man back in the beginning. If we look at Genesis chapter 1, in Genesis 1, after God created the world and all things, we read in verse 31, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And that included Adam, it included mankind, created very good. And for a short while, a few days, couple of weeks, we don't know exactly how long, for a short while, Adam walked with God. He communed with him. He had this wonderful relationship with God. He was keeping the law, obeying God, and he was good. And what a wonderful thing it is to be good and righteous and just and holy and pure and perfect. It all has to do with keeping the law. Now, God tells us concerning his law in Psalm 119, verse 39, it says, "Turn away my reproach which I fear, for thy judgments are good." And judgments is a synonym in Psalm 119, like law, statutes, word, for the Bible, for all the commandments of the Bible, all the laws of the Bible. God's judgments are good. The law is good. And if a man use it lawfully, and over in Proverbs chapter 4, we read in the first couple of verses, "Hear ye, children, the instruction of the father, and attend to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law." Doctrine comes forth from the law, and it's good doctrine. The Bible lays down a law, and then we learn the doctrine, and the doctrine is that which we live by according to the law. The Sunday Sabbath is a doctrine. Come out of the church is a doctrine. Every teaching of the Bible is a doctrine, and if it's a right doctrine, it's a good doctrine based on a good law. And to do it, you would be doing good. And that's what we are to do as a child of God, is to do good, to walk in God's commandments, to walk in his statutes, to walk in the truth, would be doing good. Now, again, that's a work. It's a work, and no man is justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. So we who have been blessed with salvation and have received a new born-again soul, we obey the commandments, we walk in the law, we do good in that way, because it is how we show love for Christ, and it's how we live our Christian life. It's doing the will of God. Now, that is the biblical definition of good. The biblical definition is to obey the law and to do the law, to keep the law. And the opposite is to transgress the law, break the law, and that is what makes a man a sinner, a transgressor, an evil doer. And when he breaks the law, he has done evil. And now, if God looks at him, and the individual could have done much righteousness, let's say, like Adam previously, but the moment he breaks the law, God sees sin and all the things we read in the Bible that we read in the passage of Romans 3. Immediately, the man is unrighteous. Immediately, he is not good. He has lost righteousness. He has lost goodness in the sight of God. And he has become a dirty, rotten sinner. But again, that's not the world's standard. That's not the world's standard. The world's standard is someone who is friendly, kind. They are giving, in other words, according to the world's standard, you can have a neighbor. You can have a neighbor, and this neighbor is just really an awful person. He's a killer. He's doing terrible things to people. But as long as he comes out of his house and gives a nice wave with a smile each day and says, "Hi, neighbor, how you doing?" then the neighbor's going to think, there's a good guy. There's a good guy. You see, man, or the world's definition of goodness, is open to being deceived. They can easily be deceived by people, and that is one reason when someone has done something atrocious, horrible to their fellow man, and the news crew shows up to his neighborhood, and they come to the neighbor and they say, well, tell us about this guy. I mean, have you heard what he's done? What was he like living next to? Oh, he was a nice guy. He was a nice guy, very friendly, and easily deceived because it is the wrong standard. We cannot define people by our idea of goodness. The true standard is God's standard, and that standard is His Word, the Bible. And according to the Bible, and this is a fact, this is absolute truth, there is none good, no, not one.
You've been listening to eBible Fellowship's Evening Bible Studies with your host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann. Visit our website at ebiblefellowship.org for additional studies. Until next time, may the Lord's perfect will be done.